Key lived on the bank of a mighty river, broad and deep, which was always silently rolling on to a vast undiscovered ocean. It had rolled on ever since the world began. It had changed its course sometimes and turned into new channels, leaving its old ways dry and barren. But it had ever been upon the flow, and ever was to flow until time should be no more. Gents, against its strong, unfailing stream, nothing made head. No living creature, no flower, no leaf, no particle of animate or inanimate existence ever strayed back from the undiscovered ocean. The tide of the river set resistlessly towards it, and the tide never stopped, any more than the earth stops in its circling round the sun. He lived in a busy town, and he was a worker. He belonged to the co-working men. He was not a lazy man, or a wasteful man, or a drunken man. He was a patient, careful, sober, hard-working man. He was a man of peace, who was not often in the way of offense. But he was a man of a strong soul, and a great aspiration after the best things. He was a man who thought much and spoke little. He had a wonderful memory for facts and figures. He knew the histories of many working men, and he could tell with exactness for any length of time the wider range of view that had been clearly seen, the slower advance of truth, the less occupied ground that had been gained. He had this memory and this capability of comparison because his father and his grandfather and his great-grandfather had been before him workers in the same town, generation after generation. This man is called Nobody. Not that he was nobody, but because he is the representative of many thousands of men like him. He had a certain friend, also a worker, with whom he held many conversations on their circled questions of the time. One night, they were walking together, near the great river. Nobody said, "I have a fancy that this town and I have got into a rather curious case, which is not likely to end to our satisfaction. You see, the perplexing thing is that while we are all going on, we are all going back." His friend asked him to explain. Nobody said, "I mean that we are born into this land, but we are not of it. I mean that we are denied the right of being of it. I mean that we are being driven back to a time of ignorance, a time of severity, a time of blind belief and conquest. That's what I mean." "How is that?" asked his friend. "Leaders of this land," Nobody returned, "who have so much to say about all of us, and who are so violently against us all, are in their hearts our enemies. They are trying to drag us back to a time when we were not the free people that we are. They are trying to make us believe in things we have long since grown out of. They are trying to do all this in the face of the rolling river, which is ever setting to the undiscovered ocean. And the river is our friend and theirs, for it is the friend of all mankind. But they are our enemies, and they would ruin us if they could." He paused for a moment, and then went on. "If they could. But the river is too strong for them. The river will flow on, and we will flow on with it. We have come a long way, and we are not going back." And so they walked on by the side of the great river, and the town was very quiet, and the stars were shining. Nobody's story is the story of many a man who has lived and died, and whose name is not written in any book of fame. But it is a story that will live as long as the river flows.